So, greetings, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining me on the planet. My name is June Allen, and I'm a racial trauma therapist. I'm a business coach, and thank you for joining me today. Today's topic is going to be quite a heavy one, so you might need to get yourself a cup of tea and make yourself comfortable. Because today I'm going to be talking about jealous black mothers and wounded daughters. Okay, jealous black mothers and wounded daughters. And yeah, I'll go into the context of it in a little while, what kind of brought me to want to talk about this topic. But before I get into it, um, I just want to share just a few things, a little bit of housekeeping, actually, yeah, before I get into it. So if there's anything that you don't understand, anything that you're not sure about, or you've got questions or anything about anything that I share in this video, you can email me at info@yardofgreatness.com. Okay, info@yardofgreatness.com. So you can ask any follow-up questions or how to work with me or anything like that. If you want to know any details about how to work with me or anything like that, there's more details on my website at heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. So this live stream is also inspired by a workshop that I have coming up on the 27th of June. Saturday, 27th of June, where I'm talking about the mother wound and your money. I'm looking about how we'll be exploring how the mother wound impacts how you show up at work, how you show up in your business, stuff like that. It's specifically geared towards therapists and healers. Okay, so if you're a business coach, if you're a therapist, if you're a healer, anything like that, any type of wellness practitioner, or you work in the wellness industry or anything like that, and you recognize that your mother wound is kind of is linked to how you show up at work, then this workshop is for you. Okay. And again, you can find all the details about how to join me for the mother wound and your money experience at heal.juneallen.net. Okay. Right. So now I've got that out the way. Let's dive into the content. And also remember, this is not a substitute for therapy. I've got to say that. It's not a substitute for therapy. I am a therapist, but I'm not your therapist. Okay. So if you want to work with me again, you can use the link heal.juneallen.net and you can find out more details there about how to work with me as your therapist. Right. So today I'm talking about jealous mothers and wounded daughters. So this episode came out after I saw a post on TikTok a couple months, well, it was actually about 4 or 5 months ago. It was quite a while ago now. And it was a video of this black mother cussing her daughter out, basically, and cutting off her hair in a very aggressive way. It was just, now I think about it, it was just it was so painful to watch. So painful to watch. And I commented under this video because the guy was talking about, there was another guy that had stitched the video and he was talking about, how she doesn't agree, he didn't agree with how this mother was disciplining her child. And I basically put a comment under it saying, this is not discipline, this is abuse. Okay. So to date, and I literally had somebody comment under it this morning when I looked at the thing. There's 27,000 people liked and commented underneath what I said. 27,000 people commented and liked under what I said under this video. And so I was thinking, okay, this clearly resonates with a lot of people. People are really upset about this. People were sharing their own stories about their mum cutting off their own hair and doing the same sort of thing. And so I thought, you know what, I need to do a podcast on this and just expand on, and I'm not, obviously I don't know the woman in the video. I don't know the daughter in the video. So this is not really specifically about those two people because I don't know them and obviously I'm not their therapist or whatever. But what it did bring up for me is the way how harmful maternal patterns get played out. Okay, get played out in families. And also, I've worked with so many clients who have got mother wounds who talk about their own experiences of their mother behaving in certain way. They're kind of acting out harmful patterns, harmful behaviors that have impacted their own self-esteem and they find it difficult to show up at work or whatever because of it. So I really wanted to name this. And I also just wanted to say as well that this podcast is not about shaming black mothers. It's not about, trying to make black mothers look bad or anything like that. But what I am saying is, and the reason why I'm doing this is we also do need to talk about the way that, things like enslavement, oppression, patriarchy, misogyny, misogynoir, how all of that stuff, gets internalized, and how it gets played out, how it gets recycled in families, and it creates harm. As much as we know oppression exists and all the rest of it, these conversations are important for our healing, because we can't just keep talking about, what the systems do to us. We know what the systems do to us. We know the systems are toxic, but we also need to talk about how we've internalized how the systems treat us, and how we play that stuff out with the people that are close to us. We are not going to heal as a community if we don't have these honest conversations, or we're not exploring these types of things in therapy and stuff like that. And these are the types of things that I will talk to clients about, that we will explore, because at the end of the day, if your mother wound is still there, it's still playing out, it's still raw, and I know obviously from working with clients as well, that a lot of people feel a lot of shame about these things, that their mum did these things to them, and they don't really, it's hard for people to talk about it. It's really hard for people to talk about it, which is why I'm having this conversation. Okay, this is the reason why I'm having this conversation. Maybe there's going to be something that I'll say in this podcast that will help you feel seen and heard. It will help you understand, like, you're not on your own. You're not holding this stuff by yourself, and that it's not your shame. It's your mum's shame that's probably been projected onto you, and you've internalized your mum's shame. She's using her position of power as your mum to act out all of the stuff and the trauma that she hasn't dealt with. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get into the content. But I just wanted to say those things up front in the beginning. So first of all, and let me just say as well that this is a two-part. This is going to be a two-part thing, because when I first started doing the research and thinking about what I wanted to talk about, the specific things that I wanted to talk about, there's just too many things that I really wanted to say that I didn't want to kind of squeeze it into one podcast. And I know this is going to resonate with people, because if 27,000 people liked my comment and put more commentary and stuff underneath about their own story, there's a lot of people out there. Okay, there's a lot of people out there that need to be heard, and that need to be seen. And I wanted to honor that. Okay. So this is going to be a two-part podcast as well. So in this session, I'm going to be talking about what jealousy looks like, okay, what jealousy looks like in black mothers, why it happens, okay, and what the wounding is looks like for the daughter, okay. And then in the second part, I'll talk more about solutions. I'll talk more about, how we can deal with it in therapy, what are the healing pathways for it and stuff like that. And how that's linked to the workshop that I'm going to be doing on the 27th of June, and how that can help you begin to unpack some of those things. Okay. So the first part is we're going to look at, what does jealousy look like? Okay, what does maternal jealousy look like? So it's not always as obvious as what people might think. It's not just obvious envy. It can look like mocking somebody's appearance. Okay, it can look like mocking someone's appearance, and I've had that happen to me. I remember times when my mum mocked my appearance. Um, and it's really painful. I was always the weird one in my family. I was always the weird one, the one that always wore those funny clothes, the one that never kind of, I was never really conventional. I was never ever really conventional. I was always very different. At the time when I was very young, I didn't realize that I knew that I was always queer. I knew that I was always fluid. I knew that I wasn't kind of like your bog standard kind of person. But I just didn't have words for it. I didn't name it. And there was so much shame around being different, because my family were raised, I was raised in the church and all of that kind of stuff. I felt ashamed of feeling different, even though I didn't have words for it. But I knew that I felt ashamed of it. So like mocking your appearance, your hair, your clothes, your skin tone, the colorism conversations, your size, all of that kind of stuff. These are all ways that a mother can project, can play out, can act out her envy, act out her jealousy on her daughter. Okay, and all this does is it sabotages the child's confidence. It sabotages the daughter's confidence because if the mum, the person that gave you life, okay, the woman that pushed you out of her womb is telling you consciously and unconsciously that you're not good enough, or that you're ugly, or that you're this, or that you're that, being negative, how on earth are you supposed to have confidence in the world if the person that pushed you out of a womb is saying these, doing these things? Okay, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to have good self-esteem when the person that gave birth to you is not affirming you as a woman, as a black woman. She's not affirming you. She might also punish your beauty if you are beautiful, okay, or you're visible. Your mum might not like that. That's another way that her envy is going to be played out. She might not like the fact that you're visible or you're beautiful, so she might say things or do things that sabotage it. Okay, and I think the woman in this video who was cutting off her daughter's hair, maybe there's some of that going on for her because she kept making statements like, "Oh, you think you're too cute, and you don't listen to me, so." You think that being pretty is this. I mean, the way that the mother was talking to it was just heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. And the girl had braids. She had long braids. And you could see that her hair was her own hair was quite long, like plaited inside the braids. And literally, the mum just had a pair of scissors and she was just literally cutting the girl's hair off at the root. And there was a part in the video where she actually she went like that to the girl's head to put her head to show her hair right in front of the right in close up to the camera so the camera could see how low she cut the girl's hair. So not only did she cut the girl's hair, shame her, and abuse her, she filmed it and then uploaded it to the internet. She filmed it and she uploaded it to the internet, thinking that people were gonna agree with what she did. And people just were just really sad in the comments. They're just really, really sad. I saw a couple of idiots in there saying, "Oh yeah, well, I agree with the mother." Really? But by and large, it was just a lot of sadness, a lot of pain from people sharing stories about what their mum did to them or what their parent did to them and how it still stays with them. It stays with you. That stuff stays with you. And you could see the girl was just in shock. The young girl, the daughter, was just in shock. She must have been about, I don't know, maybe in her late in her teens or something. She must have looked about 15, 14, something like that. And it was just heartbreaking, just seeing the shock on this girl's face when her mum was literally just holding her and just cutting her hair off, telling her that she thinks she's too cute and all this, that, and the other. So this mother obviously she envies her daughter. Why would you do that? There were so many other ways that you can discipline. And I hate to use that word. I even hate that word because that word gets weaponized. It's an excuse for abuse. When people say discipline, it's like an excuse for abuse. For so many families, they would use that word to be abusive. So, that word is for me, it's very activating, that word. There are so many other ways that she could have managed that, but clearly she doesn't have the skill. She doesn't have the capacity to do something that's actually going to benefit their relationship and teaching her daughter something valuable. Instead, she chose to publicly abuse and shame her child. So punishing daughters for visibility and for their beauty is a way that, mothers will act out their envy towards their daughter. Another one is competing for male attention. Okay, competing for male attention. I hear so many clients have said this to me, where the mother's partner has done something or looked at the daughter some type of way, and the mother will attack the child, the mother will attack the daughter and not pull up the man for behaving some type of way. She's more likely to pull up the daughter and do something to and blame the daughter for being too fast or being too this, that, and the other, rather than having the conversation with the man. Devastating, devastating to the daughter. The mother might even withhold praise. She's not gonna praise the daughter because what happens is the daughter is being something that the mother could not be. The mother sees something in the daughter that she doesn't have. So because of the power dynamic, that mother is going to weaponize her power to keep the daughter in her place, to keep her small, to keep her in her place, to keep her under manners. So again, while all of this is happening, it's eroding the daughter's self-esteem. The daughter has no self-esteem. She doesn't have any self-confidence. She's always keeping herself small. She's self-silencing because in order to maintain that attachment with her mum, she has to be small. She has to abandon herself. She has to abandon herself in order to stay in that relationship. So what happens then is she then internalizes everything that the mother says and does, and then she ends up doing that to herself. Even when the mother's not around, when the daughter is an adult, she's going to continue those conversations. She's going to continue those internal conversations. So it's like, the adult's inner voice, our inner critic, okay, as adults, quite often can be the parent, the abusive parent. That's what becomes the adults in our adult inner critic is the parent. So in this case, the woman who's putting herself down, she's silencing herself, she can't accept compliments, all this kind of stuff is quite often because the mirror that she had with her mother that was envious of her, that was jealous of her, she would not allow her daughter to be seen in a powerful way. The mother always had to make sure that she kept herself small so that the mother could maintain a sense of power. So the daughter she has no autonomy. She has no autonomy. And what this does actually is when we're in these situations where mothers have abused their daughters, I think about what relationships are going to look like for this young girl that was in this video. I wonder what her relationships are going to be like when she's an adult. If she's in a relationship with a man or a woman, however she identifies in terms of her sexuality and stuff like that. If she's in a relationship with somebody, how is that gonna play out? Because what she's learned in this situation with her mum cutting her hair off is that people that supposedly love me can do these things to me, and it's my fault. I have to just take it. Because if you're in a situation, if you're in an abusive relationship with your parent, if your parent was abusive at any level, that dynamic is going to mirror. You're more vulnerable to be in a situation where there's domestic violence, whether it's in a heterosexual relationship, whether it's in a queer relationship, where you're more likely to experience domestic violence if you were raised in an environment that was violent. Okay? You're more likely to experience domestic violence if you were raised in an environment that was violent. Okay. So some of the other ways that jealousy gets acted out, there's one on my list is public humiliation. This woman she posted the video, you know, she posted the video of her doing this to her daughter. Um, there's rage when the daughter shines, when the daughter wants to have her own life, when she wants to do her own things, if she's successful, anything like that. A mother who is jealous is going to act out. She is going to do whatever she can to center herself in the daughter's life and put down the daughter. Okay, she's going to punish her daughter for wanting to be independent. She's going to punish her daughter to wanting to be separate from her. She's going to punish her daughter for having her own voice, for wanting to have her own voice. Okay, the mother may even favor her sons over her daughters because the mirror of that daughter is just too much for the mother. And actually, what happens is actually a projection of self-hatred. That's what it is. It's also a projection of self-hatred. The mother doesn't like herself. So what the mother ends up doing is she's projecting that onto the child and saying that the daughter's this and the daughter's that. You're not pretty, you're not this, you're not that. And the daughter's absorbing all of this, thinking it's really about her, but actually it's really about the mother. It's got really nothing to do with the daughter. The daughter becomes a vessel for the mum to project all of her own low self-esteem, her own self-hatred onto the daughter. That's what that's about. So she'll end up favoring her sons. She'll end up favoring her sons or prioritizing her sons over the daughter. Okay, so these are some of the ways that the jealousy and the envy gets acted out onto the daughters. Okay, that's what it looks like. Some of the things if that what it looks like. If you resonate with some of these things and you want a safe space to be able to talk about these things, I do have some spaces available. Okay, if you're looking for a therapist, you can find details on how to work with me at heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal at June sorry, heal.tunehallen.net. If you are a wellness practitioner, if you are a therapist, a healer, and you are trying to figure out how this mother wound, okay, how this wounding might impact your ability to show up in your private practice, in your business, I have this workshop on the 27th of June. Okay, it's on a Saturday. There's also a follow-up session 2 weeks later where we kind of go through, what you've done as a result of the day experience and stuff like that. So anyway, all the details are at heal.juneallen.net. Okay, so you'll find it there. So that's basically what I've just done is basically just talk through what jealousy looks like. So now we're going to talk about why it happens. Okay, why do Black mothers do this? Why do they behave this way? And basically, one of the main reasons why is because they didn't have this experience themselves. Quite often, it's a pattern. It's a pattern. And this is not an excuse. I'm not excusing, mothers from behaving this way. It's a pattern. It's an intergenerational pattern that's basically been passed down. So it's unresolved trauma, it's internalized racism, it's internalized misogyny, misogynoir, it's, texturism, colorism wounds. All of these things are all things that probably were not resolved in the mother. So what they've done is they've just internalized it from their parents, from her own mother probably. She's internalized it and now she's passing it on to her own child because she hasn't done the work. This is what happens when you don't do the work. When you don't do your own work, you're destined to recycle it. It's inevitable that it's going to show up in some way. There may well be grief there as well over lost youth. Maybe the mother, she was she got to grow up too fast. Maybe she didn't have much of a childhood herself. Too much responsibility at too much of a young age. So to witness a daughter that is beautiful, that is successful, that is getting access to all of the things that she didn't get, is going to trigger jealousy and envy in the mother. So she's like, well, I didn't get it, so I'll be damned if you get it. Rather than seeing it as an opportunity for herself to grow, her attitude is like, well, if I didn't get it, you ain't gonna get it. So I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that you stay in your place, that I remain on top. And a lot of this is often unconscious. Sometimes I don't even, it's not even a conscious decision. No mother wakes up and thinks, oh, I'm going to be, I'm gonna act out and I'm going to be really mean to my child. No mother wakes up and consciously decides that they're going to do that. But when the patterns have not been broken, when the mother has not been witnessed, her own trauma has not been witnessed and worked through, when there's no self-awareness, when she doesn't have anything else to compare it to, she's just going to act out and just recycle the same old shite, and she's just going to do the same thing what was done to her. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. The thing about patriarchy as well, and misogyny and all of that, they condition women to compete. Okay, patriarchy, misogyny, misogynoir, they condition us to compete with each other. And this is something that also that I hear a lot from my black female clients. They 9 times out of 10, a lot of them talk about this thing, and a lot of us, we end up laughing about it later on, but they come into either working with me in therapy, or if they come to my groups or anything like that, there's a real anxiety around being around other black women. There's a painful anxiety around getting vulnerable with other black women. And the reason for that, 9 times out of 10, is because they've got a mother wound that's unhealed, a mother wound that is still raw. Being visible was unsafe. Being visible was dangerous. Being successful was dangerous. Being beautiful was dangerous. Being too smart was dangerous because they didn't, they quite often get shamed, or all the stuff that I just spoke about. Their mother could not handle the daughter's brilliance or her beauty or her visibility or her success or whatever it is. So a lot of times, a lot of black women are walking around with this anxiety around being around other black women or being vulnerable with other black women because of these wounds that are still being activated. These wounds are still being activated, and so they end up self-silencing, keeping themselves small around other black women. They're afraid to kind of to really show up for themselves. And again, this is going to play out in the workplace. This is going to play out as under earning. This is going to play out as under being, keeping yourself small at work. Again, these are things that we were talking about in the experience that I'm doing on the 27th of June, the mother wound and your money experience. This is the type of stuff that I talk about, because it's not always named. Or people know that it goes on, but maybe they're not. A lot of it is unconscious. When I first really started talking about this topic, and I remember when I did the keynote at the Black and Asian Therapist Network last year. The amount of people that were just like, wow, oh my God, this makes so much sense. They'd never really connected the dots before, linking the mother wound with how they show up at work, the under earning, the under being, not being able to, fear of being visible, all of that. They couldn't link it to the fact that they had a difficult relationship with their mum and visibility felt dangerous. So of course, when you're at work, you have to show up, you have to be an adult, you have to you have to have boundaries, you have to be confident and all the rest of it. But I know, I've worked with so many people that end up, it becomes a very painful process for them being a business owner, because that visibility wound, that receiving wound, is so raw that they just find it really painful to be able to do it, and they hadn't actually connected the dots. They hadn't connected to the dots. So you need to be really intentional about doing your mother wound work, so that you can show up at work in your business in a different way. you know? So I'll talk more about, the healing process and all of that in part two. But it's something that is really important. And this is why we need to be having these conversations, because people will, I've heard people talking about, what it's like being in business, being an entrepreneur and all the rest of it. And they're so quick to kind of name it as, oh, it's a mindset issue. Oh, it's a mindset issue. Oh, you just need to change. It's not, it's trauma. It's trauma, it's mother wound, it's receiving wound, it's visibility wounding from mothers, parents. All of these things are not people are not having conversations about this when it comes to being a business owner. Okay. So and then we need to be having these conversations. We need to be having these conversations, because it's going to give you insight and help you unpack and understand what belongs to you, what belongs to your mum, and what belongs to the system. Okay. Those are the things that I help my clients tease out, okay, in session, is what belongs to them, what have you internalized and made it your own? What are your own scripts? Okay. What belongs to your mum? What have you internalized from your mum? What have you internalized from her trauma, from her acting out? What have you internalized from her and that you're now doing to yourself? And then the third part is the system, racism, oppression, misogyny, patriarchy, sexism, whatever it is, homophobia, whatever. You have to really look at all of these things. And when you start to tease those things out and you understand what belongs to you, that's when you start to take back your autonomy. And then you can gently start to take your time to get to know yourself. But you have to understand the wound first before you can heal it. Okay? You have to I need to write that down. You need to understand the wound first before you can heal it. If you don't understand the wound, you've got nowhere to go. You can't, there's no way that you can heal it if you don't understand it. You need to understand the layers of it, especially as a black person, as a black woman. You need to understand the layers of it as a black woman in order to heal the wound. You need to understand what's come from your intergenerational line. You need to understand it. And that's not to excuse it or minimize your pain. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about understanding the intergenerational line so that it gives you context. Context is everything. Doesn't mean that you don't feel the pain, because obviously you're being impacted by it. Of course it's painful. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be still angry about it. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be angry with your mum for treating you that time. You still have a right to be angry about it. You still have a right to be angry about it. Okay? You still have a right to be angry about it. But just having that context means that it creates a wider conversation. A wider conversation. It's complex. We talk about the complexity of it. It's a complex situation. It's not as easy as, oh, my mum did this to me and that's it. No, it's a much more complex for us as black people, as black women. It's a much more complex conversation. Okay? So those are some of the reasons why this happens. Okay? There's a couple of extra ones on the bottom I'd written down actually. Um, there might be resentment actually from the mother. I'll just quickly tell these couple of last little bits. There might be resentment from the mother around the fact that what she had to sacrifice. She became invisible. She may well have become invisible in order for the daughter to be who she is. And so the mother might be resentful or envious and jealous because the daughter is getting the things that she didn't get. Her mum didn't give it to her, so she's now envious because the daughter has it. So she's gonna act out. She's gonna act out. And if that mother does not have her own healing tools, if she's not in therapy, if she's not self-aware, if she's not trauma informed, if she doesn't understand all of this, she's just gonna act out. She is just going to act out what was done to her. So the daughter then becomes the mirror for the mother that triggers pain. The daughter becomes the mirror that triggers the mother's pain. It's very difficult for the mother to see the daughter as a human being in her own right. She just becomes a mirror of the mother's pain. So she's going to project, she's going to act out, she's going to dump her stuff on the door, all of her self-esteem stuff on the daughter, because she doesn't see the daughter as her own separate human self. She's just a vessel for the mother to dump her stuff on because of the power dynamics. Yeah, that's what that is. So let's the last bit I want to talk about in this part one is how does this impact the daughter? What are the internal wounds? What's the wounding? Okay, how does this contribute to the mother wound with the daughter? Okay, so what she learns from the experience of the mother being jealous of her, the mother being envious of her, is that her beauty is dangerous. Her being smart is dangerous. Her success hurts people. Yeah, her success, her money, her abundance hurts people, i.e., her mother. So basically, she has to keep it on the quiet. She doesn't want to be too successful. And this is where the under-earning part comes in. The daughter doesn't feel worthy of being able to out earn her mother. She might have an unconscious cap She might have an unconscious money cap that she's holding on to because she doesn't feel worthy in of being able to earn more than her mother because she doesn't want to upset her mother. She doesn't want to become a target and be attacked by her mother for earning more than her mother does. So these are really important conversations. These are really important conversations. Have you created a ceiling for yourself around earning, around your abundance, around visibility? All of these, have you created a ceiling for yourself around all of these things? Because unconsciously, have you made a contract with your mum that says that you're not going to be more successful than her? You're not going to be more healed than her. You're not going to be more emotionally intelligent than her. You're not going to earn more money than her. You're making different choices from her. You're making healthier choices than her. All of these things are important questions for you to ask yourself. How are you continuing to keep yourself small? Because you're afraid that if you allow yourself to expand into the brilliance that you are, is it going to threaten your relationship with your mum? It doesn't mean that your mum is going to, you might lose that relationship. Are you going to lose the attachment? Because the attachment stuff is, I'm telling you, that stuff is powerful. That stuff is powerful. There's a primal part of us that will do whatever it needs to do to make sure that we stay attached, even if the relationship is unhealthy, even if the relationship is abusive with the parent. That's why sometimes it takes so long for people to set boundaries around parents that have been abusive. Because that part of our brain, that primal part of our brain is like, you need to stay attached to this person, otherwise you're going to die. That's what it feels like. You need to stay attached to this person, otherwise you're going to die. So we keep hopeful, we keep trying, we keep thinking it's going to be different next time. We keep thinking she doesn't mean it. We keep abandoning ourselves over and over and over and over again because we just want to. The child in us, likely the child in us, wants to stay attached to that person at any cost. So we will keep ourselves small. And obviously, this is how it plays out. It plays out at work in, again, you keeping yourself small because you're trying to stay attached to something, either to your clients or your boss or whoever. You keep yourself small because that original wound, that original attachment wound around your mum is then playing out at work. You can't show up for yourself. You can't speak up. You can't set your prices. You can't set boundaries. The original wound is that mother wounding that said, if you do anything, if you test me, I'm off. So that primal part of us that does that is trying to protect us from any type of relationship rupture is playing out. Okay, is playing out. So the dialogue then becomes, I must shrink myself in order to be loved. I must shrink myself in order to be accepted. I must keep myself small in order to keep my job. I must keep my mouth closed in order to keep my job, in order to keep my boss happy. This is how it plays out. And if you shine too much, then you're going to be punished. That's a huge one. If I'm too smart, if I'm too beautiful, if I'm too educated, if I'm too, if my energy is too, if people like me too much, then, I'm going to be punished. And not only can that play out in the mothering, but that can also play out at work as a black woman. Your boss might not like you because you're too good. I hear this from my coaching clients. I hear this from my coaching client. Their boss, a lot of them come to me, they've got white women bosses and they just act out. These white women just act out because they don't want these black women that are in that, that come to see me for coaching. They don't want them to shine. And these women just they don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to deal with these white women. And sometimes it might even be from white women that are not even in senior positions to them, but they're acting out at work and and getting away with it. I just need to plug this in actually, otherwise I'm going to get cut off. Hold on. There you go. I should have plugged that in at the beginning. All right, Anna, hold on. Hold on. I don't want to get cut off. Don't cut me off. Okay, there it is. It's charging now. So sorry about that. Yeah, so yeah, if you shine too much, you're gonna get punished. Okay? If you shine too much, you're gonna get punished. It's that one. And having too much money creates conflict. Having too much money creates conflict. Being visible is unsafe. So basically, if you sit in your brilliance, it just feels so dangerous. So we just end up under owning, under being, keeping ourselves small, self-silencing, all of that stuff. Yeah. This is how the wounding shows up in the daughter. This is how the mother wounding shows up in the daughter. The envy, the jealousy, all of that kind of stuff. All of that stuff gets projected onto the daughter. And this is how the wounding shows up in the daughter. So whether we're talking about the relationship with the mother, or we're talking about her relationship to work, or her relationship to other people, when if she's in love relationships, this is how this stuff is going to play out. Because being visible is just too dangerous. And visibility is something that, again, I've had this conversation with so many people that I work with, my clients. Visibility is just excruciating for a lot of people. And actually, it was a huge part of my journey that I found excruciating for the same reasons. Visibility is so dangerous. It's so dangerous, when you've got mother wounds. Okay. Really, really painful. So, I'm going to leave it there for today. Okay. So, what I really want you to take from today's session is really thinking about your relationship to your mother wound. And, do you identify with any of the how the jealousy and the envy shows up? Do you experience any of those things with your mother, as a child or as an adult? This is not just about when you were little, this is also about when you were an adult. Sometimes it feels more confronting for mothers when we're adults because obviously we have more autonomy as an adult. We can walk away, we can say things or whatever. And sometimes I think that it feels more painful for the mothers to witness their daughters in settlement because obviously we have there can be a different dynamic, you know um and that mirror is even more, it's even more confronting when we're adults. So this is not just about when you were little, when you were younger, when you were a teenager. It can you have the ask yourself these questions, right up until in the now, and just to remember that, a lot of us were raised by Black women who mistook domination for discipline. Okay. Domination is not discipline. Okay. Let me say that again. Domination is not discipline. Stop calling abuse love. Stop it. It's not. Abuse is abuse, period. Okay. And it's only when we start to name these things and be honest with ourselves, okay, when we find safe spaces in therapy or whatever to have these honest conversations, that things will start to change. Things are not going to change if you're still in denial about it. And I get it. It's like the denial is like a protective output. The denial is you trying to protect yourself from the excruciating reality that the woman that gave birth to you treats you some type of way. So I know for some of you it's going to be hard hearing what I've said today. And I get it. Maybe you might not be ready to have those conversations. I absolutely get it. So I would just offer you, just be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself and allow yourself to maybe revisit this another time. Revisit this at a time when you feel like you do have more capacity to be honest with yourself about it, because it's not easy. It's not easy having to admit these things. It took me years to be able to admit that actually, there's a part of me that understood it intellectually, but my body, my being didn't want to accept it. Okay, my body, my being did not want to accept it. It's a really hard thing to accept and to understand. It's really, really painful. But there's something quite, over the years, I can say that, doing this work and, having my own therapist and being in recovery and doing all that kind of stuff, it freed me. it freed me. And, I can say that it allowed me space to find myself in naming what was the reality. I found myself. So yes, I'm still estranged from my family and I've lost those relationships, but I found myself and I actually have a family of choice. I have chosen family where those relationships are a lot more they accept me for who I am. There's a lot more integrity. There's a lot more, and the people that are in my circle now, they're all, a lot of them are either therapists or whatever, and I have genuine love and care, giving and receiving from people that really do care about me and love me for who I am, all parts of me, the vulnerable bits, the bits that are wounded, the bits that are confident, the bits that are queer, that, I don't have to censor myself. I don't have to silence myself when I'm around chosen family. But it's taken me a long time to do it. And I'm not saying that you have to do the same, but what I'm saying is, it's a process and it's different for everybody. It's a process and it's different for everybody, but it's about finding your path and finding what's right for you. That's what's really important. Okay. So if there are things that resonated with you in this podcast today, you got questions or anything like that, you can email me info@guideofgreatness.com. If you want to find out how to work with me as a therapist or as a business coach, you can go to heal.juneallen.net. And if you want to join me as well for the workshop on the 27th of June, the Mother Wound and Your Money Experience, again, you can find out all the details about how to join me for that, again, at heal.juneallen.net. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you next time for part two. All right, take care. Bye bye.